Hi, I am Chris Williams, and I'm a program consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. Today with me is my wonderful colleague, Ben Riley, who's going to assist me with our topic today, which is the Accountability Indicator Training. And this is for progress on English language proficiency. So let's begin. There are 6 indicators that make up the Kentucky Accountability System, including state assessment results in reading and mathematics, state assessment results in science, social studies and writing, English learner progress, post-secondary readiness, quality of school climate and safety, and graduation rate. This training will focus specifically on the progress of English language proficiency, which is one of the 6 state indicators in the accountability system. The Office of Assessment and Accountability developed this glossary of terms to assist educators when referencing and discussing the accountability system. I will refer to these terms throughout the training, so be sure to come back to the slide as necessary to refresh yourself with definitions if needed. Here are the overall accountability weights for each indicator. This presentation focuses on the English learner progress weights. And just want to let you know a special note for this. When you look at the English learner progress, you'll notice that for elementary, middle, and high school, it does count 5 as for our overall accountability weight. And one thing is to keep in mind that our federal law requires the great emphasis on reading and mathematics and English language progress at elementary and middle school. If a school does not have an EL population, then the weight gets distributed proportionally toward the other indicators. Here is the agenda for today's presentation, and we'll go over a lot of things for you for this particular indicator. Kentucky's ESSA plan, which is Kentucky's Every Student Succeeds Act plan. Here's a link to that particular plan, which is current for this year. Also, within the plan, it talks about progress. You have to meet progress on English language proficiency indicator. And with that, to align with ESSA, the English Learner Progress Indicator includes the growth of each English learner on the ELP exam. Growth for English learners within the English Learner Progress Indicator is an individual student performance comparison from prior year to current year, and points are assigned according to a value table. And the data is based on longitudinal performance of each English learner on the state's annual assessment of English language proficiency. Kentucky and 37 other states use the revised WIDA access for ELL assessment, developed and implemented through the University of Wisconsin. The growth on English language acquisition value table is sensitive to growth at every level of language proficiency up to the level designated for reclassification. To provide more sensitivity, the Access Composite Score levels have been divided into 2 sublevels. So the value table acknowledges growth between performance levels 1.0 to 1.5, 1.5 to 2, and so up to 4.5. The English Learner Growth Table uses observed growth based on achievement on the English Language Proficiency Assessment from 2 successive years. The more growth a student has made, the more points are accredited to the school. The English language progress value table remains the same as it was last year. Proficiency levels for Access are 1.0 to a 6, with 1 being the lowest and 6 being the highest. To use the table, find the prior score on the left side of the table and the current year score along the top of the table. Where they intersect are the points are for each EL student. For example, if the student was at a 3.0 last year, which would be found along the left, and 3.5 this year, this would be along the top. The school would get 60 points for that. The alternate access has newly adopted alternate English language proficiency standards. As a result of implementing these new standards, WIDA conducted an operational test with new items for the alternate access during the 23-24 school year, which required a standard setting during the summer of 2024. The standard setting process has resulted in a delay for states receiving the score reports. The reports will be available later this fall. To assist states with reporting, we provide the states with a concordance for the alternate access for the 23-24 spring administration. The concordance allows states to link test scores, which measure similar constructs by relating a score on one test to a score on another, that the scores have the same relative meaning for a group of test takers. For the alternate access, the concordance connects the scale scores between the 2022, 2023, and 2023 and 2024 test administration. The information on this slide will remain the same as last year, with looking at the prior year score on the left side of the table and using the concordance to obtain the current year score at the top, with the proficiency levels to determine where they intersect. This intersect provides the results of whether or not the EL student made progress to proficiency for this year. We will look at example on the next slide for access. Now let's explore some examples of English language progress status, which helps illustrate both positive and negative progress toward English language proficiency. On the left side, you will see an example of a positive progress toward English language proficiency. The student's previous score on the access was 2.0. This year, the student's score has increased to 2.5. As a result of this improvement, the student is awarded 60 points. On the right side, we have an example of a negative progress toward English language proficiency. In this case, the student's previous score on the access was 3.5. However, the current year score has dropped to 3. Because of this decline, the student would receive 0 points. These examples clearly demonstrate how change in a student's performance from year to year can impact their overall progress status and the points they earn. Now let's take a look at how the status calculation performed for students. First, the status is determined by comparing the student's WIDA access on alternate access performance from the previous year to the current year. This comparison uses EL tables to assign points, and the scores are then averaged to generate the final result. It is important to note that students are reported based on their full academic year, meaning that they must have been enrolled for at least 100 days in their respective schools and districts. For the assessment to count, students must be tested using the same assessment, either access or alternate access, in both years. Only students with points values ranging from 0 to 140 are included in the report. Lastly, the analysis only includes students from groups that meet the minimum in count threshold of 30 students, which applies to elementary, middle, and high school. The calculation for status has not changed. To calculate the status for the English learner progress, take the total number of growth points earned and divide it by the total number of EL students who have both a prior year score and a current year score. The status scores represents the current year outcome for a given indicator and is calculated according to the metric described in the performance level descriptor document below. There are 5 status levels ranging from very low to very high for the current year. Color ratings will include 5 performance levels from highest to lowest. Performance of schools will be reported by levels elementary, middle, and high as applicable. The school report card will display the color ratings for each indicator to communicate performance of schools with red being the lowest and blue being the highest. I am providing the status cut scores for elementary schools and status cuts for elementary schools. As a reminder, the cut scores for all levels were established in 2023 through a standard setting process, and the cuts determined at this time have not been changed. I'm also providing the status cut scores for middle school and the status cut scores for middle schools. As a reminder, the cuts for all levels were established back in 2023 through a standard setting process, and the cuts determined at this time have not changed. I'm also providing the status cut scores for high school and the status cuts for high school. As a reminder, the cuts for all these levels were established in 2023 through a standard setting process, and the cuts determined at this time have not changed. I will now turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Ben Riley, who will discuss change with you.
Thanks, Chris. Let's go ahead and dive a bit deeper into understanding the change score for each school. The process can be broken down into a few key steps. First, we begin with the status score. This score isn't just a static number, it represents change. It's calculated by comparing a student's performance on either the WIDA access or the alternate access tests from year to year. We use the EL tables to allocate points based on their performance. And then we take an average of these points to get our status score. Now, to understand the change, we compare the status score from the prior year to the current year. Here's the formula. Current year status minus prior year status gives us this change, or gives us the change score. Once we have the change score, we add it to the current year's status score. This will give us what we call the indicator score. Simply, current year's status score plus change score equals the indicator score. However, there are limits to consider. If for some reason the indicator score is less than 0, we set it to 0. On the other hand, if it exceeds 140, we cap it at 140. This ensures that our scores remain within a meaningful and manageable range. These steps ensure that we get a comprehensive understanding of the school's change. Let's take a look at an example of a change score. The process involves comparing a school's performance from the previous year to the current year. We use what's referred to as the EL tables to assign points for this comparison. Chris shared these earlier in her presentation. Once we've assigned these points based on the performance levels, we average the scores. Let's take a real-world example to extrapolate. For the current year, let's say the school achieved a current year status score of 75. Looking back at the previous year, their prior year status score was 70. Now, to compute the change score, we subtract the prior year's score from the current year's score. In our example, 75 minus 70 gives us a change score of 5. But that's not all. When we take this change score and add it to the current year status score to arrive at what we call the indicator score. Adding our change score of 5 to the current year status score of 75, we get an indicator score of 80. So in essence, the indicator score encapsulates both the present performance and the change from the previous year, giving us a comprehensive measure of change. And the benefit of this method, it's consistency. No matter which indicator we're examining, the calculation remains unchanged. Every indicator's change score is computed in the exact same manner. Now, once we have our change score, it's important to classify it. We categorize these scores into 5 distinct change levels. 1 declined significantly, 2 declined, 3 maintained, 4 increased, 5 increased significantly. These levels provide a clearer, more intuitive understanding of a student's or group's trajectory from the previous year. So to give a quick representation, current year status score minus prior year status score equals our change score. Now, a key point to remember while we use the prior year scores to help us calculate these change scores, they do not directly influence our indicator performance ratings. Their primary function is to give us a benchmark, a point of comparison to see how far we've come or where we've receded. I'm providing the change scores for elementary schools and high schools. As Chris shared with status, the cut scores established in 2023 have not changed. Along with the elementary cut scores table, I'm also providing the change cut scores for middle school. As Chris shared with the status that the cut scores established in 2023 have stayed the same. Along with the elementary cut scores table, I also am providing the changed cut scores for high schools. As Chris shared with the status that the cut scores established in 2023 have also stayed the same. Now, let's simplify things a bit and understand the indicator score. Think of the indicator score as a blend of two components, the status score and the change score. In essence, the indicator score is a straightforward summation of both of these scores. So when we talk about the indicator score, we're essentially capturing the current status along with the progress made or change made from the prior year. Imagine it this way. By evaluating both where you are and how much you've progressed, the indicator performance rating offers a more comprehensive understanding of performance dynamics. It's a holistic way of combining static performance, change, and providing a clear, color-coded snapshot. Please note, though, this does not influence the indicator performance ratings. The indicator performance rating is one of 5 color-coded performance levels designated for each state indicator. This table is a culmination of our earlier discussions on both change scores and status scores. Remember, both change level and status level have 5 distinct levels which range from decline significantly at the baseline to increase significantly at the pinnacle. These levels help us categorize and better understand the journey of performance from one year to the next, as well as the current status of performance. However, it's vital to keep in mind that behind these categorical levels are actual numerical values. Both the change score and the status score are represented by these numbers, providing a granular insight into where exactly performance lies within a given level. Our indicator performance ratings table combines these two elements, the change and status levels. By examining this table, you'll get a comprehensive understanding of how different combinations of change and status influence the final performance rating. So, as we delve into the details of this table, remember, we are integrating both the quantitative aspects of the scores and the qualitative insights provided by the levels to present a whole picture of performance. Let's transition to an overarching perspective with our overall scores. These scores will provide a collective reflection of the outcomes across all available indicators. To arrive at these scores, it's not just a simple summation. We carefully apply specific weights to each indicator, ensuring that each contributes proportionally to the bigger picture. Take, for example, our high school overall score calculation. Starting with the state assessment results in reading and mathematics, we have its indicator score, which is weighted at 45%. That's multiplied by 0.45. Next, our state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing indicator score has a weight of 20%, so that's multiplied by 0.20. Continuing on, our English learner progress indicator score is weighted at 5%. Following this, we have a quality of school climate and safety indicator, which holds a 4% weight. Then, the post-secondary readiness makes up 20%. And lastly, the graduation rate is given a weight of 6%. When we factor in all these individual weighted scores, the sum gives us our overall score. This methodology ensures that each accountability indicator contributes in a manner that reflects its weighted significance in the broader calculation of overall score. Looking at the bigger picture, let's dive into the overall performance rating. This rating isn't isolated to just one school level. It combines performance across elementary, middle, and high schools. This is achieved by tapping into our indicators, ensuring a consistent benchmarking standard. Now, to make this data more digestible and immediately comprehensible, Kentucky adopted a color rating system. At a glance, these colors provide a clear and intuitive sense of a school's performance. Picture a spectrum. At one end, we have red, indicative of the areas where there's significant room for improvement. And as we move across the spectrum, the colors shift, each representing progressive performance. The pinnacle of this is represented by blue. The color-coded system is designed to provide a swift visual assessment of performance, making it easier for stakeholders to grasp the status and areas of focus. Please also note that the public school report card will be released later this year. The initial public release of assessment and accountability data will be an open house. Shown on this slide is a table of the current cut scores that were established in 2023. These cut scores are current. I will pause for a moment for you to review this information. As we review the intricacies of the access and alternate access calculation, it's important to clarify which students are not included in this assessment measure. Each of these exclusions has specific reasons that uphold the integrity and consistency of our data. Let's delve into these categories. 1, kindergarten students. These students only have a current year score as they naturally don't have a prior year to reference. 2, students who repeat a grade. For instance, those who were in grade 3 last year and remain in grade 3 this year. 3, non-participation instances. This could be either from the previous year or the current one. 4, assessment switchers. Some students might switch between alternate access and the standard access, which affects their inclusion. 5, grade level promotion. Say a student jumps from grade 10 directly to grade 12. 6, interstate movements. A student who took the access or alternate access in another state prior to coming to Kentucky. 7, non-attempts. Those who did not even attempt the test in the preceding year. These nuances are crucial for maintaining the accuracy and consistency of our access calculations. By understanding who isn't included, we gain a clearer picture of the data we're analyzing and ensure that our outcomes are based on consistent criteria. The students who are included are tested in both current and prior year, and students who tested in the prior year or received the lowest score but not tested in the current year without an approved medical non-participation. Here are the other trainings offered by the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support for our state accountability trainings. If you have any questions about any of our training materials, please contact us. On behalf of Chris and myself, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this presentation. Also, if you have any questions concerning this presentation or any materials in any of our other accountability indicator trainings, please reach out to us at dacinfo@education.ky.gov or give us a call at 502-564-4394, and we'd be happy to assist you. Have a wonderful day.